My name is Renee Gonzalez. I'm originally from South Texas. Went to school at the University of Texas at Austin. Got my PharmD there. Did a residency up in Detroit, and then ultimately kind of wanted to do something a little bit more. In particular, I kind of wanted to go into drug development. And UK, in conjunction with a couple of universities, were one of the only places that have something called the CET program, so Clinical and Experimental Therapeutics. So because of that, I came down here and met, and I think what really sold me on the program was probably the faculty and just the way they all kind of seemed to get along, the connections I made with some of the professors here. And I think those are probably the big things that really ultimately brought me down here. The program I'm in, again, is Clinical and Experimental Therapeutics. The focus on this is that we're looking to perform outcomes-based research. So a lot of the impetus for what we ultimately try to research is based on something that's happening in the clinic. So the gentleman I work for right now is Dr. Fiala. He is a graduate of this program as well. And so his research is largely based in a phenomenon known as alternative macrophage activation, and he's really interested in more in terms of how it affects people with chronic lung diseases like cystic fibrosis. So it's our contention that a lot of the damage that occurs is actually the body just overreacting to different stimuli. And our lab is essentially trying to work out, well, if you can, let's say, attenuate or tone down some of these processes, what kind of benefit can a patient actually get? Largely from the way the kind of building's structured, and this is something that I didn't really have too much familiarness with in terms of how lab spaces operate. But the fact that it's very open, there's a lot of window space between like the working lab area and this place, makes it a pretty easy environment to meet other people, interact with the graduate students. And then once again, the fact that most of the faculty members still like kind of coming in the lab, it makes it a nice place to interact with other individuals, and sometimes even if you have a problem that's outside of your realm. So some of the stuff we do is related to cDNA synthesis. We're not too familiar with it. It's not a stretch for me to just kind of mosey down the hall, interact with another professor that maybe has done it before, and it helps a lot of problems. I found research more than anything tends to be troubleshooting above all else. The cool thing about Lexington, and if anybody out there is from Austin, I would liken it to maybe a smaller version of Austin. It's very eclectic. I was surprised by the number of different kind of odd little shops that this place has. Obviously it brings in a lot of energy come basketball season. Another thing that was kind of interesting coming from Texas, because it's all about football there, and here they love their football, but basketball is king. So it makes for a pretty cool place. And then now me in my late 20s, I found that there still is a lot of places that I can go where it doesn't feel like I'm overwhelmed by freshmen all over the place. It makes it, I think, a place where there's something for everybody. For me personally, I think the way this program gives me a benefit is just because it's one of the few programs that actually is certified in this kind of CET track grant thing. And it's my feeling that is where a lot of research is ultimately going to go. I think that's an avenue for a lot of pharmacists in the next 10-15 years. And I think that their vision for how we do research in terms of making it specific to a goal or specific to some phenomena that we're seeing out in the world, I think it makes it a much more enjoyable process to kind of go about and investigate. So I think the fact that this program is set up to kind of see connections out there that maybe other people wouldn't see in terms of what can be researched and what should be researched, I think that's probably the biggest thing that would give me a leg up.